The ego is the system that runs your sense of self. It is made out of thought patterns, emotions, and behavior loops, and the stories that try to hold it all together. Left unchecked, it creates endless existential searching, chronic disconnection, and the persistent sense that something is wrong. The goal of my videos is clarity, to see your identity and its contradictions for what they are, named precisely, to finally understand what it is that we're all running away from. The interactions between your human psychological experience of life and your own biological experience of life seem to be in conflict. Because on one hand, you have this very real feeling physical world, and you know that you have your own biology that basically, makes everything, into sort of survival mission where you cannot just walk with the head against the wall or you'll feel pain. And at the same time, on this psychological layer, it does feel kind of liquid. Like you cannot localize your own sense of self exactly in time and space. Because from the outside, yes, I can tell you you are here, right? Like I can look at your body and point to you, and it is physical. But from the individual perspective, you feel like you're this floating sense of awareness or this floating sense of consciousness behind your eyes or within your head. And you can like talk to people, and if you have like metaphysical, psychological conversations, then you can kind of see that there's like a different degree of solidity within people. So some people experience the world much more like a physical thing, and a lot of people experience the world much more like a sort of hallucinatory thing. So you can look at any part of your own experience and have the sense that you are this like floating sense of soul that moves through all of these sense data. And you can also have the sense that no, I'm a physical body, a human body located in time and space. And all of this sort of floatiness is kind of not relevant to the raw physical nature of things. So on one hand, you might ask, okay, but what is more true? And I don't find this question very useful. In a meaningful way, it is both true, because depending on how your own mind has conditioned itself throughout your lifetime, you will feel like that one thing is more true than the other. And through experiences of awakening and deeper realization of how reality is like in yourself, you usually transition from either a very solid state into a much more like fluid state. But this can then also happen and vice versa. A lot of people who are like very spiritually minded then start to notice, okay, I'm actually not separate from my own biology. I'm actually not separate from scientific accuracies. I cannot actually float away and escape from all of the physical reality, because the physical reality is actually real. And then in this way, you solidify your humanity again and become more embodied in you as a person. And then from the other perspective, you might be super atheistic, super rationally minded. Everything needs to be logical. Everything is evolutionary biology. And then you take psychedelics and you notice, holy moly, this is not as solid as I thought it is. Because the entire interface of solidity is already part of this, floaty sense of consciousness. So when you touch an object in real life, the sense of solidity that you have on your fingers in some way must be an illusion, because you are receiving sense data from your hand and your nervous system through the body that knows, okay, I cannot keep moving here, because if I keep moving here, I first of all don't move, but secondly, I might actually hurt myself, right? If you go head first against the wall. But all of this machinery requires your own body to be located in time and space somewhere, and to care about its location in time and space. So the fact that you have a survival system or that you are a survival system in the first place makes it so that any of this matters at all. So you basically create a self-sustaining hallucination that by its accuracy for its own survival becomes real and becomes true. So this also implies that you must be interacting with an actual physical outside world. Because if this wasn't at all the case, then there wouldn't be such a thing as a physical object that you can brush up against. You wouldn't live a life full of strife and conflict if the external world wasn't actually real. Now, to flip it again on the other side, well, the physical world isn't really real because it's a hallucination made up from your own biases, from your own survival bias. So your own consciousness is truly not actually interacting with the external physical world, and everything that you're interacting with is always internal. Because there is not really a limitation or like a clear distinction between external and external, internal and external, because everything that you perceive is always through your own sense data, and your sense data creates your own internal reality model interacting with the external world. You also can learn about how physics works, and there's a lot of confusion, or like spiritual communities like to use quantum mechanics oftentimes to show that hardcore determinism isn't true, or that your perception shape reality and the stuff. And it is kind of true, right? That makes sense that depending on your observation, reality changes, because all we call reality in the first place always was dependent on our own observation. This is what we call reality. But then also to just completely dismiss that there is something that exists outside your own biological organism is completely ridiculous. Because everything outside of your biological organism is what made you be here in the first place. Atoms are 99% empty space, and they're not actually that much of a solid thing. They are really frequencies vibrating in an almost unpredictable pattern. But through these interactions and vibrations, you do get the sense of solidity. So this is why in the spiritual communities, people talk so much about frequency. And it's about your own internal frequency, but it's about the frequency that you inhabit and that other people inhabit. And if you want to boil down like a unifying way to think about consciousness and to think about your own experience and to think about reality, then I do think that thinking about it as a field is extremely useful. Reality as a field is pretty much in line with how most physics understand how how it all functions, like in terms of gravity, in terms of time and space. If you think about electromagnetism as such a fundamental building block of everything that we understand. And back in the day, it used to be quite magical that magnets work, and you couldn't fathom that a compass always points north. And it seems kind of magical, but then you understand how electromagnetism works, and then okay, there's something that unifies things even across wide ranges of space. And you can extrapolate this and think about how things that are happening on another galaxy might be affecting this galaxy just by the sheer light that reaches us from there. And if I think about consciousness in these more like mystical terms, then I see it the same in that regard. Like, it's also a sort of field. And you might start to suspect that this field that controls physics, and that controls gravity, and that controls magnets, and that the field that is our unconscious experience that interacts with the outside world, and that are the sound waves hitting your ear right now. All of these kind of point to something that is very much united, something that is real and that exists independent of your own thoughts about it. So you find yourself in this odd spot where you are both a hallucination and absolutely real, because you cannot actually draw a distinction between these two. And the more you're trying to look what is behind the veil, what is behind your consciousness, what is the true nature of reality, you're trying to cause like a split in the field. It's like you are directly observing that reality is made out of your sensation and your experience, and are not satisfied with it and are trying to look for something else that would make more sense. And that's usually where science has invented a lot of stuff, but it's never separate from empirical data, right? It's always still bound by our own experience. And then on the personal level, you kind of have to admit to yourself that, yeah, I cannot actually ever verify what is outside of my life. Like sometimes it's very helpful to remind yourself of the fact that everything that you know about reality, absolutely everything, all of your experiences, all the information that you've gathered, all your skills, all your conditionings, all your viewpoints, all your belief systems, they have all happened within one lifetime. It's just this one lifetime that makes up all of your understanding what this universe is, all of your understanding of what reality is. Now imagine you would have been born into a dog's body or maybe something entirely outside of this planet. You cannot fathom how different our perception of reality then would be, because our entire rendering system of this reality would be completely different. And it shows that the hallucination aspect of it all is true, because you cannot perceive raw reality without a sort of perspective, without a sort of interface that makes sense of things. Because if you don't have a perspective, then it's everything and nothing all at once, and you end up at either nothing or just some absolutely chaotic, incomprehensible mess. So perspectives are necessary for reality to exist, because then you have a sort of duality split. So you have like a unifying field, and within that field, different viewpoints emerge, and through this you have different atoms, you have different objects, you have different people, and there's a beauty in that, because it organizes itself through the chaos into something coherent. And it feels intelligent in a way. And I think this is where a lot of the sense of spirituality comes in. It's by feeling what is actually going on and being like, yeah, this is kind of profound, and I'm very curious about it. And in order to not lose itself in all of the stuff that I've been talking about, the sense of self starts to organize around common belief systems, around common reality views, around the way you look at the universe. And in this process, you create a very specific reality model that is very unique to you. And a lot of it is fueled by actual illusion and actual falsehood. And here's where it gets difficult, because on one hand I'm saying, you are actually interfacing with some real hallucination, but then there are levels to this, right? And if you were start to believe that just because you had a dream of you being, I don't know, the second coming of Jesus Christ, for example, and then you start to believe that you're some sort of hero who's going to save the world, or some other egoic narrative, then it might actually become real to you, but it's a delusion, right? Because your survival interface is now creating like a sort of perception model of reality that, first of all, is very disconnected from what other humans perceive, which on one hand is fine, right? Like most of the stuff that I'm talking about in these videos are not something that other humans would agree with, in the way I'm framing things. But it's deeper than that, because you are not just untethering from societal perspectives, but you're actually untethering from your real raw experience data. So you're losing yourself in the mind. And this is where the disconnect happens, where when you enter this like floaty consciousness space and you're not actually embodied in your physical reality, and you float too much away, then what happens for most people is they get actually lost in the hallucination of their own mind. And now you're untethered with the actual point of the hallucination, which is to care for your survival and to give you sort of connection with the thing. But in a way, you start to disconnect from it now, and then you lose yourself in worlds in your own head. And this in of itself is not a problem, right? You can have a ton of fantasies and astral travel, if you so will, lucid dream. But if you then cannot distinguish anymore this fantasy reality from the physical world, then you become delusional. But don't think I'm talking delusional in some extreme sense. Like almost everybody is delusional in some regard, because they are untethering about something they're perceiving that they don't want to perceive, and then they make stuff up in their mind. And this entire ego thing is really just about making stuff up in our mind about other people. the ego really exists in the relationship to other people, and the way we want to be seen as something in particular. And this sort of vision for how you are seen by other people is on one hand socially adjusted, right? You always want to not be seen as like somebody dangerous, for example. But on the other hand, it can also be, pure egoic vanity. And this is what drives most people. And even if you think you're not driven by it for the most part, there's usually a little bit there that you should, investigate and look, okay, what am I trying to prove here to anybody? Because the more you're trying to prove things to other people, the less you're going to be connected to your own internal reality simulation and are actually managing, the perspectives of others, which then gives you this feeling of being inauthentic and not having found yourself and wondering who you are and what even is reality in the first place. If you want to go deeper into this stuff on like an interpersonal level, I have an ego audit where I analyze people's identity, and you can check how my process works in the description below. If you see that, I am actually kind of lying to myself there and there and there, and you kind of feel excited about yourself when you notice this, then you are becoming very holistic in your approach. Because the real problem that makes people get lost in their mind or lost in reality and don't know where they are is because they cannot be honest when they are lying to themselves. And then these lies kind of spiral out of control. And they are sometimes very difficult to catch for the individual because they are so part of your integrated reality model that you don't recognize that you're lying to yourself. You just think you're seeing actual reality, like objectively. And this is why it's so useful to think about your own mind as an internal world simulation instead of some interfacing with some absolute objective truth. And it is often this lack of acceptance that you are, in fact, rendering reality from your own senses, rendering from your own experiences and perceptions and belief systems, that causes people to feel always uncomfortable because they don't own who they are. Because it's not wrong to have beliefs, it's not wrong to stand for something. The thing that makes it wrong, in a sense, is that you don't own it, and you're scared to fully commit to what you are. You think that the moment you take a position, everybody's going to judge you for this position, and that if you want to change your mind, you cannot change your mind anymore. But you're always free to change your mind and change and shift perspectives and change belief systems and change the way you approach reality. That there's nothing holding you into place except the beliefs of your own ego. And the ego wants to hold you into place so that its reality model is solidified and it doesn't have to shift. And this is why almost all shifts in perspective are uncomfortable. They require a sort of looking at which ways your perception was incomplete. Incomplete is, like, let's say, the other way of looking at it, except of just lying, right? It's not that you're just lying to your time, but oftentimes you're just very incomplete in your view because you're biased on one side. Maybe you really understand one side 90% or 80%, and the 20% you don't understand, you just completely ignore because, you are so committed to the 80%. And so it's always useful if you can do what I've been trying to do in the video and illuminate both sides of an equation. This is what I call thinking in superposition. And it is like the hallmark of true open-mindedness, because then your ego does not get attached to a certain worldview, and you are free to explore ideas and are free to explore different identities and to interact with the world how it actually is like and not how you want it to be like. If you want to dive deeper in how the world is actually like, then I recommend you watch this video next.